every time somebody, I do an interview or talk to somebody, and they throw the Academy Award winning thing out, I always kind of cringe a little bit just because, like, when I was coming up, man, like, oh my God, you could have told me, like, if that happened, I was gonna wear it as a chain, like I was gonna have it in my bio, I would have screamed it from the roof.
It's not your bed light, it's not on your nightstand.
No, look, it's definitely in the house, but it's not like, as prominent as I probably could have it. And I think a big part of the reason of that is just like, it happened when I was like around 39 years old. And like, I still don't feel like I've really accomplished much of anything in the industry. And it also was a short film. And so, I just don't want that to be the thing that kind of defines my career. And I'm always just trying to continuously kind of move forward and kind of keep putting points up on the board.
Hey everybody, this is Mike and you're watching the Reelblack podcast. Today we have a very special day, which means get your wallets out, because we've got on the line Academy Award winning filmmaker, friend of the show, Matthew Cherry, and he's got an opportunity for us all to participate in his latest project called Time Signature. Welcome to the podcast, Matthew Cherry.
No. Thanks, Mike, man. It's been very cool. It's obviously seeing both of us, kind of through the years, kind of continuing to do our thing. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So, so I had to call you up when I saw that you had a new project, and it's on Kickstarter, right? So, so tell us about the project, and then tell us why you're going this route.
So Time Signature is essentially, kind of my next animated project. It's both a short film but also a proof of concept for a feature film. So, me and my team, we've been working on this for a couple of years now. Had this really great concept for a musical that features Black music, not just modern, but kind of through like a lot of kind of goes through the history of Black music a bit, but also has a lot of magical realism to it. Always feel like with Hair Love, like I always felt kind of like, man, I can't believe this happened with such a kind of small scale project. Essentially it's just like a dad and a daughter in the bathroom, doing their hair. And obviously, we had some fun with it as much as we could, but it felt so like kind of small scale that it almost could have been a live action project. You know what I mean? And, with this one, just really wanted to do something that kind of just was a little bigger, and just really kind of show the full range of the things that I'm into. And so the project is called Time Signature. Essentially it's a mother-daughter story. The daughter named Melody, she's essentially a bit of a music prodigy. She can play several different instruments. She's a really good singer. And she's on the verge of submitting her audition for like this really big performing arts school. And, is hit with a little bit of writer's block. With a lot of times with those schools, you have to submit like a bit of an audition piece. And while dealing with this writer block, her mom kind of comes in and asks what's going on. She tells her what's going on. We find out that her mother, Harmony, really isn't a big fan of her pursuing kind of this musical kind of path. She's trying to have her be a little bit more practical. And so, while she's dealing with this writer's block, she just tells her, you're supposed to clean the attic this weekend. You never did it. Why don't you do that? Maybe, inspiration will hit you. So she goes up to the attic. She discovers her great grandmother's piano that's been covered up. She pulls the cover off. She's just like kind of in pristine condition. A piano basically from the Harlem Renaissance kind of days. And in it, she finds a unfinished piece of sheet music. And on it, she sees that her great grandmother has signed it. And she also sees some other signatures on it that have kind of faded a bit. And she's just kind of, oh my God, like this is it. Like maybe I play this piece, kind of is honoring my, my family. And, maybe this is the piece I do for my audition. It's kind of like kismet. And so she starts to play it. And when she plays it the first time, she kind of hits it a little bit more with the 70s kind of riff as she's trying to finish it. And this is when the magic happens. She ends up getting transported back to the 1970s. And she gets transported specifically to a time where her mother is 18 years old. And so the film kind of is, the best way I describe it is like Coco meets Back to the Future. And so it's like a very personal, intergenerational story, but there are also elements of, time travel and kind of time loops. And so essentially when she goes back, she sees her mother kind of at this very pivotal point in her life. She's getting ready to go to prom. She's kind of deciding between two guys, one being her father in the future, one being this other guy. And you know how kids are, you know, you're like, man, you know, my mother ain't really support my dreams like that. Maybe it was my dad's fault. So maybe I should try to push her more towards this other guy, and maybe that'll like lead
Oh,
in the
that's the
future.
part. Got you.
Yeah, maybe you know, maybe that way in the future, you know, she'll have my back more, and she kind of finds that in doing so, you know, she's kind of created a completely different present to where you know she's not even her mother's child in this future. So he's like, all right, I
Wow.
messed that up. Let me try something a little bit more 80s style. So she plays a little 80s piece, goes back to the 80s, and now her mother is 10 years older. And you know, mother is still kind of pursuing music. And you know, she's like, all right, well, maybe I'm gonna just go all in. I'm gonna just really push her directly towards music. You know, I got some song ideas. I'm gonna let her, you know, do one of my songs. Maybe that'll help. And she helps her cut a demo. She cuts the demo. The mom
Wait,
ends up.
wait, hang on. You're giving away too
Oh, wait, go ahead.
much. You're giving
I'm,
away too much.
no, no. I mean, look,
I'm in
it's all on
already.
the page. It's
I'm
all on the
I'm
page.
in. I'm in. I'm I
It's
want
all
my
on the
name
page.
in the credits of this. How do I do that?
All right, all right. Long story short, yeah, you know, she just goes through these series of different loops, kind of their mother, and ultimately they just kind of figure out that you know sometimes the hardest thing to have is just a conversation, and you know
Okay.
ultimately the whole thing gets resolved. And the reason why the piece is called Time Signature is that we see this really kind of heartwarming resolution with the whole signature piece of it that I won't spoil right now. And so
Okay.
yeah, yeah, you know, so we're doing a Kickstarter campaign, you know, basically just because like obviously it went so well when we did it with Hair Love. You know, I never look at like crowdfunding as like begging for money or anything. I always look at it more as like providing an opportunity. You know, like literally our last project won an Oscar, and so my thing is like, well, shoot, if I missed out on that and I had an opportunity to be a part of something that could potentially do that again, like of course I would want to try to figure that out. And so, you know, with Kickstarter, it's like you put some money up, but then also you get a gift in return. And so, for our project, for example, you know, if you do like I'm trying to remember the number race, but like you know, if you do like $20 or $25, you get a copy of our soundtrack. You know, if you do, you know, I believe it's $70 or $75, you get your name in the credits. And I'm sorry, it's $100. If you do that, you get your name in the credits as like a digital
My
producer.
name in the credits. I want my
Yeah,
name.
yeah, yeah. You have that, and then we also have higher tiers. You know, $500, you get like you're listed in our special thanks section. We really found that in our last campaign that the gifts where it kind of included people in the film were by far the most kind of popular. But then we also have other things like you know children's book, keychain, poster, signed poster, kind of all the other things included. And so and for the more like baller type people, you know, whose money is a little longer, you know, you can get your name in the credits as like a executive producer, associate producer, co-producer. So, you know, we just try to have it be the full range of like opportunities for people to get involved, whether, you know, your money isn't as long or if your money is. And also just, you know, I would just look at these as more kind of community building experiences, you know, like being able to be on the ground floor is something that I think could be really
So
special.
I'm excited that you're coming back to Kickstarter in a way that we can all be a part of the project. But also, I think it's really important that people understand your commitment to telling Black stories.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I mean, like there's a lot of people out there that especially that are younger, they don't understand how important it is that because no one else is going to tell these stories if we don't, right?
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, and look, you know, there's always opportunities where you can tell other people's stories and, you know, kind of put your own personal spin on that. But, you know, it's so crazy. Like, you know, this was happening very similarly when we did Hair Lab, but, you know, when Trump was in office before, like, you know, it was even more important to kind of get your voice out there. And, you know, now he's going even harder trying to like remove our stories. You know, our book is on the ban list, Hair Love. Like, a lot of schools have banned it. A lot of libraries have removed it. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And, you know, our book is very simple. You know, it literally all it does is feature a Black family. You know what I'm saying? We're not even getting into like these super deeper conversations. And, you know, it still ends up on these ban lists. And so, you know, for me, it's like, I think that's also a big part of the whole Kickstarter thing too. It's like, yeah, we could go to the studios, but there's definitely a part of me that's kind of like, you know, a lot of them are definitely pulling back from projects that are very diverse. I think with the success of, you know, Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler's movie Sinners, I think with the success of Forever, you know, it's undeniable, man. You know what I mean? Like our stories sell, you can't deny it. And so I do think that there will be a bit of a swing back up. But instead of just sitting around and kind of waiting on somebody else to like judge our stories, I always found that it's a lot better when you can create your own momentum within your community. And now you have a tangible thing. You can say, look, we got this momentum, we raised this much money, we're going to do it with or without you. You know what I'm saying? We would love to do it with you though, kind of as a partnership, as opposed to like you just kind of being in full control of it. And then, yeah, we just kind of do it like that, as opposed to just, coming to you and you own the whole thing.
Exactly. I don't want to harp on the Oscar thing, but everybody wants to know.
Yeah, we can. I'm just kind of saying that.
Does your life change when you get your name called like that? Or, I mean, what spiritually and physically, what changes when you get that kind of recognition for an idea that you had?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the crazy thing, I don't know, man. I just obviously I was an athlete for a big part of my life, kind of like the first 25 kind of out of like 20 years of my life, that was really my main thing I was doing. And I always had a love for entertainment and radio and music and film, but it never was really my main thing. And so to kind of like start over literally at 25, becoming a PA, trying to build your way up, shadowing and doing little low budget music videos and the whole thing, to kind of get it to the point where one of your ideas does get recognized, it's incredible, man. It's an incredible feeling. And to be there in that room, like sometimes I'll look at an old picture and I'm like, damn, I didn't even realize Leonardo DiCaprio was right there, and Quentin Tarantino, and Mahershala Ali, and just like you see these titans of the industry, essentially are right there, and they were there for that moment. And so it's really amazing. And what I will say that kind of comes out of it is like, it's just like anything else. It's just like any other win you would get, be that if you're a musician, be that if you're an artist. If you live only in that moment, then that moment is all it will be. You know what I mean? You still got to kind of grind it, and you still got to like get out there and hustle and kind of just almost act as if it never happened in a way. You know what I mean? Because like you can easily get caught up in being like, all right, I did this amazing thing that, only less than 100 Black people in the history of America have done, American or otherwise. Like, I'm gonna just rest on that laurels, and that's gonna be it. But I've kind of found that you just have to keep it rolling, man. And sometimes it helps you. If anything else, it's just a nice, fun fact. You know what I mean? It's a nice like water cooler conversation, a quick moment on a Zoom call. But ultimately, they still want to hear your pitch. They still want to see the work that you put in. They still want to read the script. Is the script good? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't get you over the hump in a way that if you had some subpar, they would just like excuse it and like let it go through. You know what I mean? So you still got to just hustle and grind and work as if it never happened. But it's really amazing to have that, on the resume. And definitely something that now that I have kids, hopefully one day, it's a bar that they can have, and hopefully, if they get in film, they could try to go past that too.
Yeah, and we can circle around now. I mean, that's what's interesting to me about Hair Love. You didn't have kids at the time that you made it.
Yeah, man. I think being a filmmaker is all about just having empathy. And I wasn't a dad at the time, but I had friends who were, and obviously I always aspired to be one. You know what I mean? I had a great father who was very supportive of kind of all my various endeavors, and so I wanted to do the same. And just being empathetic. Like if my daughter was in a situation where she wanted me to do her hair, my mom, my wife was unavailable, or girlfriend or whatever, what are you going to do? You're going to just like say no, or you're going to like kind of suck it up and step up. And then in the short, obviously we have that like other twist where you see why it was so important for her to have her hair done. But yeah, man, it's just all about empathy. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a story that's directly from your own life. And that's what it was with Hair Love.
Yeah, well, let me turn some more light on. So that's awesome. So I mean, so I really appreciate you being with us. I want everybody watching to feel welcome and engaged with being a part of Matthew's next chapter.
Yes.
And how can and I know there's only a few days left, and you've already made your initial goal, right?
Yeah, we did, but it's one of those things where like I definitely wanted to set it higher, but I know it's a different time. I know the economy isn't really in a great position, and so I wanted to be a little bit more conservative with the initial goal. But look, we're still trying to raise bread. Like, we're still trying to go far and beyond that as possible, just because like this project being so much bigger than what Hair Love is going to be, we got to write songs, we got to hire artists to sing them, we got to get a choreographer to, choreograph the dance sequences. We got to, we want it to look really amazing and polished, as if this was like a short film that would play in front of a Disney movie or Pixar or Sony. And so with that said, like, we're trying to go as beyond it as possible. Like our new goal now, we're trying to hit 100,000, hopefully. And if we can hit that, we're going to try to keep going as much as we can, because the higher amount of money we raise, the higher quality the project will be. And ultimately, we might end up being in those same conversations that we were with Hair Love if we do it right.
And you'll have the control,
Exactly. Which is super important too.
Words of advice. Tell us something that you wish you knew then that you know now.
I think the biggest thing is just you have to start as soon as you can. It's never going to be perfect. You know what I mean? Like I've kind of fell into this trap a little bit post Oscar, like wanting the next things to be kind of that level, or almost chasing that a little bit. Like, all right, this next project got to be at that level too. And it's like, at the end of the day, man, like, a great idea that never gets made is just that, like you have to actually figure out ways to put points on the board and actually get stuff done. I always tell high school kids, man, like I'm looking forward to the day that a high school kid does a movie and wins an award, a major award. You know what I mean? Just because I feel like with the way the technology is now, you read Spike Lee's book, She's Gotta Have It. This man had to like go to an edit studio and buy all the film and all this stuff. Like now you literally could shoot it on your phone. You can literally edit on your laptop. Like you have all the tools kind of in front of you. Literally, you could use your iPhone as a sound thing and plug the mic into the phone and have that be in your pocket. Now you have sound. So to me, it's just like there's so many more opportunities to make a film. And like I just want kids to get into it sooner than later. You know what I mean? You don't have to wait for film school. You don't have to wait until you're 30, 40 years old. You know what I mean? Like you could do that right out of film school. You could do that before you go to film school. So I just think you only get better by making it, and you only become a writer by writing. You only become a director by directing. You only become an actor by acting, not thinking about it or trying to figure it out. You just got to do it.
Just do it. I love it. Thank you so much, Matthew, for hanging out with us. I know you got a busy day.
Yeah, no worries.
But anybody watching, this is what I suggest you do. Go to Kickstarter right now. Hopefully it's not too late, because this stays up for a long time. But while the campaign is going, get that name in the credits of your daughter. Get that name in the credits of your son. This movie is going to go places. Mark my words. And it's up to us to be a part of it. Make sure that it happens at the highest level. All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. No doubt, man. I appreciate you.